musical. For some of you who don't know, Wicked is based off of the book about the life and times of the Wicked Witch of the West.
By Gregory Maguire.
Yes. This musical adaptation is nothing like the book. The book was incredibly dry and bland, while this production is captivating from beginning to end. We begin with the Ozians rejoicing over the Wicked Witch's death, as well as gawking at Glinda the Good, who has arrived on a bubble.
The Ozians ask the question,
Glinda, why did wickedness happen? That's a good question. Was it many people find could you define? Are people born wicked? Or do they have wickedness thrust upon them?
which brings Glinda to explain how the Wicked Witch came to be.
Her father went to work while her mother gets busy with a mystery man. And this mystery man gives her mother a green elixir. 9 months later, Elphaba is born and she's green! Dun dun dun! After this, we get into them, singing No One Mourns the Wicked.
It's no Ding Dong, the witch is dead.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And one of the Ozians asks Glinda,
Is there no further questions?
Glinda, is it true? You were her friend?
Glinda kind of denies this, sort of.
out of nowhere, Elphaba appears, because now we're in a flashback of Glinda, and Elphaba in college when they first met.
And might I add, Elphaba is the most adorable green girl you will ever see.
Absolutely gorgeous. We get one of my favorite little farce with Elphaba and the other Shiz students where they're all just staring at her. She has the best retort ever.
What? What are you all looking at? Find something in my teeth? Very kind. Might as well get this over with. No, I'm not seasick. Yes, I've always been green. No, I did not eat grass as a child.
She has a very, very sarcastic nature. It's played very well, I think. Her father only sent Elphaba to college to care for his beloved Nessa Rose, Elphaba's younger sister, who is also paraplegic. He gives Nessa jeweled shoes and just sort of brushes Elphaba off.
I talk so much.
Elphaba.
Enter Madame Morrible, who is...
The headmistress of Shiz. She's kind of like the principal, if you will.
She also has a sorcery class, which is very coveted. She only takes one student per semester.
Glinda makes it very well known that she is only attending Shiz because she wants to join the sorcery class. But Madame Marvel just
ignores her
completely.
Upon a great misunderstanding, Elphaba and Glinda become roommates, due in part to Miss Morrible basically hooking them up. Morrible tries to take Nessa to watch over her herself, but Elphaba has this huge magical freak out. Which intrigues Madame Morrible. She informs Elphaba that she wants to try to get her in to meet the wizard, which happens to be Elphaba's biggest dream. This is where we segue into the song The Wizard and I.
And I meet the wizard, what I've waited for since birth.
It's where Elphaba just daydreams about meeting the wizard and being looked at as a hero
Instead
for working with the wizard instead of
a freak of nature.
Yeah, which she isn't.
The next song is one of our favorites because it's probably one of the funniest songs
Mm-hmm.
Glinda and Elphaba are riding home to tell their families of their distaste towards their roommate. And the song is What Is This Feeling, also known as
Clothing, unadulterated clothing, for your face, your voice, clothing.
This ends with them in class where we meet Dr. Dillamon, the professor, who is a walking, talking goat. In Oz, there are two kinds of animals. There are the walking, talking kind, which is spelled with a capital A, and the regular kind,
Are just,
lowercase.
yeah.
Recently in Oz, the walking, talking animals have been fired and discriminated. Dillamon finds a hate message on his chalkboard that says animals should be seen and not heard. He dismisses the class abruptly, and Elphaba tries to talk to him, and we get the song Something Bad, which isn't really the greatest song, but it's not because it's a bad song. It's just, I mean, I know he's a goat and everything, so it makes sense, but I'm not really big on the whole something bad. We meet Bach after this, who is a foolish, foolish boy.
He's a munchkin, and he has a big crush on Glinda and is always trying to get into her pants unsuccessfully. She just wants nothing to do with him.
Yeah, he really does think he has a shot in hell with her, which is hysterical. Then Fiyero, the ultimate bachelor / underachiever.
Your card nearly knocked me over and you're sleeping.
Well, of course. It's daytime. Well, see you soon, Average. I'm sure I won't last longer at this school than any of the others.
Who happens to be a prince.
Arrives at Shiz asleep in a carriage. Nice.
They almost run over Elphaba, which completely pisses her off, and they get into a little conversation.
Is this really how you go through life, nearly knocking people over and not even noticing them?
Well, maybe the driver saw green and found that go.
We get the song Dancing Through Life, which is probably the longest song.
It just goes on and on and on.
And on and on.
But there's a lot of stuff that happens during the scene. It's a good song.
Yeah, but when you're just listening to it rather than like watching the musical, it does tend to drag. Fiyero decides to throw a ball or party, whatever you want to call it.
At the Ozdesk Ballroom.
Bach tries to ask Glinda, but Glinda decides to set him up with Nessa. Nessa's thrilled and goes on and on and on to Elphaba how she doesn't want to hear Elphaba say anything negative about Glinda anymore. Elphaba, being grateful that her sister is happy, manages to get Glinda into sorcery class. But Glinda doesn't know this, or know Elphaba's intentions, and gives Elphaba this hat that she actually hates.
That her
Passion.
grandmother gave her.
Yeah. She finds out during this party when Madame Morble approaches Glinda with a wand and everything that she's been invited to the sorcery class. Elphaba then appears with the hat and all. And everybody stares and laughs at her, of course, but instead of running off crying like you or I probably would have, she just takes it in stride and starts dancing away. Afterwards, Glinda feels bad because Madame Morble had told her that it was Elphaba's idea, so she approaches Elphaba and they dance together. I guess that's translation for I'm sorry. I was such a bitch.
And thus beginning the friendship of Elphaba and Glinda.
And then us getting into probably the most popular song in the entire production called
Popular.
Dun, 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 dun.
There it is.
Yep.
Toss, toss. after that creepiness.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with Glinda. She seriously needs some medication through this performance.
Some actresses portray it calmer than others,
But
and
most
some
of them
seem like they just drank a whole keg of Red Bull.
The next day in class, Dillamon is fired in the middle of class, which is like the most unprofessional thing ever. And the new teacher brings in a lion cub and tells the class that someday animals will be seen and not heard, basically, and they'll be living in cages like regular animals. Well, Elphaba gets pissed off, of course, and sends everyone except herself and Fiero into a dance fever.
Theater girls, theater.
Sorry. I guess she got a hold of us too. Her and Fiero run off with the lion cub and discover they like each other. Scandal! Fiero runs off, and Elphaba sings I'm Not That Girl.
Which is a very heartbreaking song.
Don't lose sight of who you are. Don't remember that rush of joy. He could be that boy. I'm not that girl.
Madame Warble comes in and gives Elphaba a letter requesting that Elphaba comes to meet the wizard. We're at the train station, and in protest to what is going on, Glinda decides to change her name.
Transformers no longer be known as Glinda, but as simply Glinda. No, don't cry, Glinda. It's Glinda now.
Glinda had confided in Elphaba that
He's been thinking. It really worries me.
Fiero approaches and says, well,
Just watch.
I've been thinking.
Yes, I heard.
like I said, she has a very sarcastic nature. I love it. Elphaba invites Glinda to Emerald City. They go to Emerald City, sing One Short Day, which is akin to the song Wizard of Oz.
Merry Old Land of Oz.
Thank you.
And basically they're just touring and sightseeing and just having a good girls' day in the city.
Pretty much what they did in Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm.
They meet the wizard, who turns out to just be a regular old guy behind a 10-foot mechanic face that, once you see it in person, which we got to go backstage and see it in person.
It's huge.
It's insane. We're already short, but we kind of pretty much look like insects. Madame Warble turns out to be the wizard's press secretary. And her and the wizard trick Elphaba into putting a spell on some monkeys.
Mainly the main monkey, Chistery, who's like the wizard's pet monkey. And then she finds out that the spell not only affected him, but affected all the other monkeys and gave them all wings instead of just allowing them to levitate like they were supposed to. And might I add, the book, actually they call it the Grimoire, but it's basically just a spell book.
Yeah.
And Elphaba's the only one who can actually read it.
And when she discovers that's the only reason why she was invited to Emerald City, how do we put it? She has a bit of a, not really a panic attack, but she's...
I would kind of say panic attack almost.
She definitely is appalled.
Mm-hmm. Because the wizard's just, trying to make himself seem more threatening. And not only more threatening, but more powerful and more of a goodness to him by making Elphaba his enemy.
Which, of course, is really shitty. Linda and Elphaba hide in the attic.
Elphaba tries to barricade the door from the guards by using a broom.
She ends up enchanting it instead. You get Madame Warble announcing to the public that it's pretty much all Elphaba's fault. And that she's this wicked being, and then declares that she's the Wicked Witch of the West.
Of the West, yeah.
And then we get Defying Gravity.
Where Elphaba is, at the end of the song, lifted above the stage.
Nobody in all Oz, no wizard that there is no cause. And I'm on a
I mean, you just gotta see it. It's amazing.
Act 2 begins with, thank goodness, Linda tricks Fiero with an engagement party.
being engaged.
This is an engagement party?
Surprise.
Nice. That's so romantic, Glinda. You shouldn't have. It's what every man dreams of.
I know, right?
Marvel explains what really happened. Of course, saying that it's all Elphaba's fault, but also glamorizing Glinda and giving her the name Glinda the Good. Elphaba returns home to find that her father is deceased and that Nessa Rose is now the governor of Munchkin Land. Didn't really mention that before because it just seemed slightly off, since I vaguely remember in the book that he was actually like a priest or whatever.
Yeah.
Bach is living with Nessa, even though he actually,
Doesn't really like her.
I would even go as far as saying that he hates her.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know how she managed to, she must have had him like on a really short leash.
Elphaba and Nessa get into a little bit of an argument. Nessa tells Elphaba that she's upset because she's using all of her powers to help these animals that she's never met, and yet she's never used her powers to help her. Elphaba decides to enchant
The
Nessa
jewel-
Rose's shoes,
the jeweled shoes.
which turns them
Red.
ruby red, and
And
gives her the ability to walk.
Bach returns, because I guess he left to go pout or whatever. That's probably the only thing Nessa will let him do is like go to the bathroom so he can pout. Whatever. He proclaims that he's still madly in love with Glinda. Nessa gets irritated and tries to cast a spell on him to make him love her instead. It backfires, and since spells cannot be reversed once they've been cast, Elphaba has to cast an entirely different spell to
save his
life.
Thus giving Nessa Rose the name of the Wicked Witch of the East.
Yeah.
The Munchkins aren't really happy with her either, so they all think she's wicked anyways. Which
Because
kinda-
apparently she's
she
like
kinda is.
really pushy and won't let the
controlling
won't let the Munchkins leave or anything like that.
and a stalker too.
Not really a stalker, but she definitely does have him on a leash. Shit, she may as well put him in the cage. I like you. You're very pretty. Elphaba goes to help the monkeys find Fiero and confront the wizard. This is where we find Dillamon, who can no longer speak. Fiero and Glinda show up. Fiero professes his love for Elphaba. Elphaba and Fiero run off.
Madame Warble and the wizard start having a conversation of how can they get Elphaba.
Yeah.
How can they capture her? Glinda, being really upset that the man she loved just ran off with her best friend, tells them,
Use her sister. Spread a rumor. Make her think her sister's in trouble. She will fly to her side. You will have.
which is pretty bitchy.
Glinda's a bitch.
And so Madame Warble, who happens to have the powers to control the weather, ends up creating a cyclone. And
Elphaba gets the feeling there's something wrong, and then she sees the flying house. And Fiero tells her to meet him at his castle.
in Kiyomiko, they part ways. Elphaba goes to try to help her sister, but it's too late. Which leads into one of my favorite scenes when Elphaba and Glinda get into this big fight. some of the best lines in the show are in the scene.
And what exactly have you been doing? Besides riding around on that filthy old thing. But we can't all come and go by bubble.
In the fight, the guards show up and try to capture Elphaba. Fiyero tells them
If they don't let Elphaba go, that he would shoot Glinda. And even though he really wouldn't do that,
instead the guards decide to capture him just for being with Elphaba and threatening Glinda the Good.
Elphaba, in a panic, rushes back to Kiamako in the castle and
Puts a spell on
puts a
Fiyero.
spell on Fiyero to save his life.
No good deed.
Epic, epic song.
We discover that there are witch hunters out to get Elphaba, of course.
Glinda and Madame Morrible are watching everything that's going on, and Glinda realizes that this is all wrong, that Madame Morrible is making all this happen,
She's not a good person.
and confronts her. Madame Morrible just
Now you listen to me, Missy. The rest of us may have fallen for that good routine, but I know better. You wanted this from the beginning, and now you're getting what you wanted. So, just smile and wave and shut up.
So Glinda then goes back to Kiamako to try to warn her that they're coming for her.
Elphaba decides to surrender herself and let Dorothy go. So they say their last goodbyes.
They realize that they'll always be friends.
Because I knew you. Because I knew you. I haven't changed for good.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful song.
We see a silhouette of her being melted. Glinda confronts the wizard and Madame Morrible, and she tells the wizard to go back to wherever he came from and six the guards on Madame Morrible, thus basically ending the show. We'd like to mention that we did leave quite a bit out because we didn't want to completely spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen the show, and trust us when we say oh my gosh, you find out so much more about how the Tin Man and the Scarecrow came to be, and then some. Go see the show, because even if you've guessed, it's still worth seeing it unfold for yourself.
Even if you've already seen the show, I mean, it's one of those shows you have to see more than once. It's
amazing. She's seen it twice, and I hate her. Briefly, I want to discuss the costumes, the music, and the set, because it's one of those things where, I mean, even if we just showed you high-quality pictures, which I will, you still have to experience these things for yourself, because it's so much more amazing, especially with the set, because it's full animatronic set. It's not just, rotating scenery like most.
It's a very elaborate show.
It's pretty incredible. I mean, if you just look at the freaking bubble that Glinda appears in, the dragon above the set.
Yes.
Because it really moves, and there's really smoke that comes out of the mouth, and
His eyes lit up.
yeah, and it's pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm.
When you see it for the first time, it's like, oh my god, that's awesome.
Yeah. And the whole set, like, the majority of it, kind of resembling a clock, because it goes back in time, and they talk a lot about the time dragon clock, which is also mentioned in the book. So it's a clock look to it, and it's really neat because a bunch of the different pieces move in one short day, and thank goodness all throughout the stage and on the side, green lighting.
The dresses and the costumes, the gowns especially, because most of the costumes are pretty standard for a period piece or fantasy or whatever is pretty standard, corset style, medieval looking. But the gowns are just insane, like the blue dress that Linda wears, first dress that you see her in. And
It's huge.
And
that
just
dress
the-
is huge.
just the detail to it is insane.
Elphaba's second act dress.
Which
Beautiful.
reportedly weighs, like, what,
40 pounds. And has, like, I don't remember how many different pieces it has to it, but it's, like, there's a lot of different colors. It's not just straight black. It's
No, there's a hint of red in it.
green,
Yeah, it's
blue, I think.
amazing. And of course, the music, since I'm sure you've gathered from the clips I've shown, is insane. I mean, just when the curtain hasn't even been raised yet, but there's like a bunch of Aussies that just come parading out, doing all these different little acrobatic moves, and the curtain comes up and more of them come out, and all they're doing is basically vocalizing. And you're sitting there like,
Mm-hmm.
because they're amazing. They have amazing casts.
And not to mention, it's Stephen Schwartz that wrote the music. And if you don't know who he is, he's wrote a lot of stuff for Disney and other Broadway shows. He is just an amazing composer. His music is just to die for.
Definitely a show that you need to see and experience and see again and again and again.
It's even been mentioned in The Simpsons.
It just seemed really out of place and
It did.
like non sequitur to the whole rest of the show because
It's
it's
just
never
random.
mentioned again.
It's just completely random.
But still kind of funny. Well, that has been our episode for Wicked, and we genuinely hope that you will give it a chance and go see it, because it is definitely worth the money. Bye! See you next time! Uticles was not performed in front of a live audience. Something bad. They may as well hired Stevie Nicks, you know? Why not? Insert classic South Park joke here.